and we'll bring on our next guest for the live stream studio here at Bevnet Live Winter 2021. Once again, I'm Ray Latif, the editor and producer of Bevnet's Taste Radio podcast, and our next guest is the one and only Julie Cielo, the founder and CEO of Ferm Fatale. Julie, how are you?
Good. No wardrobe failures coming up on stage this time.
For folks who are very loyal viewers of Bevnet, we had Julie on 6 years ago when she was part of the New Beverage Showdown. And yeah, no wardrobe failures this time on the studio.
What a trip it has been in the past 6 years, Ray.
Isn't it unbelievable? You know, I gotta say though, I mean, congratulations on making it to 6 years, because there's a lot of brands that don't make it, you know, past 1 year once they've been on stage, you know, as part of that competition. You've done a pretty amazing job. So congratulations.
I appreciate
on
that, Ray. There was a period in the interim that you know, I'm not really proud to talk about, you know, because I was homeless in LA. You know, I was on the edge of suicide, you know, so I totally relate to what a lot of founders go through, especially if you don't have a partner or, you know, you don't have experience in the industry, how tough it can be. But I'd like to think that I've grown a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think vulnerability is something that's really tough for a lot of founders to talk about. This is a tough business, and I think, you know, hearing that kind of sentiment and having it be so real, it's true. This is a tough business, but there are people here who can help. There are people who believe in you, and I think the solidarity is great. It's something we're seeing here at Bevnet Live.
It feels like family to me.
It definitely does. Ferm Fatale, what do you guys do?
So Ferm Fatale is the world's first probiotic social beverage. I'd like to think that we are some of the leaders in the adult non-alcoholic space, which is the fastest growing category currently in beverage that I'm aware of. It's really exciting times to see so many brands coming out there to be alternative drinks for instead of alcohol. As we know, big alcohol has dominated the scene for a really long time, and to have these small, particularly small brands coming out and you know, really showing a new side to the beverage world, I think is really exciting times, because as we know, there's a lot of people turning away or just cutting back
on alcohol.
On alcohol.
It's so interesting because in 2015, you were ahead of the game, it seems like. You know, I mean, people were thinking about, oh, maybe I'll cut down on drinking, but not to the extent of where it is at this point. And even in the New Beverage Showdown today, we saw two brands really talk a lot about how they were targeting those folks who are sober curious or looking to cut back on their drinking habits. How have you tapped into that audience? Because you mentioned you're a probiotic mocktail.
Yes.
So there's a functional benefit to it, but then there's an entertainment, so to speak, benefit. There's an experiential benefit to it. So how do you, I guess, navigate the functional versus the fun, so to speak?
Really great question, because I feel like this differentiation is huge in the industry. There's a big difference between functional beverage and adult non-alcoholic. I'm kind of riding down the center of the highway, which is what I was doing in 2015 whenever, if you remember correctly, I had a bottle of gin and a bottle of tequila, I believe, and it was like 9 a.m., and I was calling it the convertible social beverage at the time. And then at launch in January 2020, I was getting ready to go on a podcast of the woman that coined the terms Sober Curious, and she read a little bit on my website that said, oh, our product protects your liver if you do drink alcohol, and she immediately turned me down for the interview. And I realized in that moment that I did need to pick a lane. Even though I'm not 100% sober myself, I'd call myself Cali sober. I know Demi Lovato just rebuked that, but I'll take Cali sober. You know, there's a lot of people coming to the scene right now that are cutting back on alcohol, and they're looking for these social beverages, but they're not sober. So the data that we've collected in the past 6 years basically is that 50% of our consumers are sober, and the other 50% are people, what we would call them mindful drinkers. So, you know, sober curious, I would say, isn't quite as all-encompassing as the word mindful drinking and gray area drinkers. Those are really the majority. But people that tend to gravitate towards our brand are 50-50. So, you know, speaking to people that are sober when you're not 100% sober yourself can be a slippery slope.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to find your positioning, especially when there are a lot of lanes that you could drive through. At the same time, you know, it's also about how you position your brand from a packaging standpoint. And you've gone through a pretty significant evolution in terms of your packaging. It originally was a multi-serve product. Now it's a single-serve product that you sell in multi-packs.
Right.
What are your learnings? What are some of the learnings that you've received in terms of how that consumer sees that pack, and what entices them to try, what entices them to pick it up?
Well, coming out with a 750 ml product that at the time I really was trying not to use the word mixer because I felt like that was passé. So that's why I was using convertible social beverage. Those formulas were loaded with sugar and lots of residual sugar left in the bottle. In the inner period of time where I was homeless and suicidal, I was also forecasting something coming down the pipeline, which has come to be true, which is consumers really are looking for that zero net sugar, low sugar, and also now low ABV. So I saw that coming down the pipeline, so I repackaged and reformulated to a zero sugar, zero alcohol product, but particularly bottled it in 7-ounce bottles instead of the 750 ml. And that has been really smart, but I mean, honestly, I'm letting intuition sort of drive me. It wasn't something that a consumer told me. It was me thinking to myself, well, what am I looking for as a consumer? That's sort of where the answer came from. So
you've also extended your brand on our brand cam, which we'll pull up in a second. You have a water product, which is pretty fantastic. I had some the other day, and it's remarkable. I know you don't like to use the word mixer, but in this case, I think it's fair to use that word for sure.
Yeah, I sort of went back, It's funny how life will bring you full circle. And the iconic water is a water that's first infused with white quartz crystals. So it really, brings it into this high vibe. It's also a raw water to begin with. And then we use something called Himalayan crystals, which are these live scobies. So everyone knows about kombucha, but do you know about water kefir? And oftentimes, I mean, you know about it, but a lot of the mainstream consumers don't really understand what water kefir is because there's these little tiny grains that look like grains of rice that are living, and then you put them down into the sugar water, and just like kombucha, they feed off of it, and then all these naturally occurring compounds and bacterium and antioxidants get released into the water. But I designed the iconic water because I saw all of these non-alcoholic spirits flooding the market. And, Fever Tree is not the only mixer out there. I also saw another problem solution, which was forced carbonated water has shown, and research shows, that it will deteriorate your gut lining. Really? So I know that we're all sucking down forced carbonated water here, but the truth of it is it's not good for your gut. So if you're somebody with autoimmune or somebody that's really struggling with gut issues, LaCroix, no bueno.
LaCroix, no bueno. I hope we're not offending anyone from LaCroix. Perhaps they'll look into your technology in terms of how to improve their brand.
Yeah, natural carbonation is the way to go.
Yeah. Now we're here at Bevnet Live, Winter 2021. There are so many people to meet. There's so many people that you can connect with. What are you looking for specifically? What's going to help you get to the next level, Julie?
Thank you so much for asking that question, Ray. I would love to connect with an investor, partner, strategic partner specifically, perhaps an incubator that wants to take on a female brand. I feel like I've made a lot of really good traction, certainly have a cult following in the D2C, and I would love for somebody to recognize what I've already done and perhaps help a girl out. Help a girl out.
For sure, and I think, your brand story and your personal story are really passionate and moving, and I think, there's something that's really authentic about everything that you do and about your brand as well. And I think, from talking to investors, they're buying into the people. They're buying into the dream, but the founder's passion for that dream and how willing they are to go the distance to get there. And I see so much of that in you, Julie.
Thank you so much, Ray. And like I said, Bevnet really, truly feels like family to me. And I'm just really pleased to be back here after 6 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much as well. It feels like 6 years, but I'm glad it feels like the 6 years have been really, really impactful and great for you. So great to see you once again, Julie. Thanks so much for joining us in the live stream studio.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you soon.